Hey guys, welcome back. It's time for Sound of Thunder Part 3, which is our final section. So we are, in fact, going to figure out how it all turns out. And it's a super fun story. So, before you finish off the reading, I think it would probably be good for you to kind of just stop and think and remind yourself what happened the last time we were together. And think about the plot diagram. And where do you think we are? Have we reached the climax yet? We know that the major problem of the story was there were a couple things, right? Travis and Eccles and the guys all came back in time. They wanted to kill the dinosaur, but the really big deal was they had to make sure not to change anything in the past, because if they did, it could ruin the future. So we had a couple of big problems and we have to figure out how they're going to get resolved. Now we know from part 2 that they did in fact kill the dinosaur, but the story's not over. So we have to figure out that other conflict of what would happen if something went wrong in the past. How would it change the future? We don't know the outcome of that problem yet. And so that's kind of what we're going to figure out here. So let's begin. You need your story and your handout. And just like before, I'm going to tell you what section we're going to read, and then I'll read the section. But you're going to decide what it is you're going to jot about and then make an inference. And so your teacher may have you think, pair, share with your class. You may be doing this on your own at home, but either way, I'm not telling the answers in this one. So here we go. Travis came walking, glanced at Eccles, took cotton gauze from a metal box, and returned to the others who were sitting on the path. Clean up. They wiped the blood from their helmets. They began to curse, too. The monster lay, a hill of solid flesh. Within, you could hear the sighs and murmurs as the furthest chambers of it died, the organs malfunctioning, liquids running a final instant from pocket to sac to spleen, everything shutting off, closing up forever. It was like standing by a wrecked locomotive or a steam shovel at quitting time. All valves being released or levered tight. Bones cracked, the tonnage of its own flesh off balance, dead weight, snapped the delicate forearms, caught underneath. The meat settled, quivering. Another cracking sound. Overhead, a gigantic tree branch broke from its heavy mooring, fell. It crashed upon the dead beast with finality. There. L'Esperance checked his watch. Right on time. That's the giant tree that was scheduled to fall and kill this animal originally. He glanced at the two hunters. You want the trophy picture? What? We can't take a trophy back to the future. The body has to stay right here where it would have died originally, so the insects, birds, and bacteria can get at it as they were intended to. Everything in balance. The body stays. But we can take a picture of you standing near it. The two men tried to think, but gave up, shaking their heads. They let themselves be led along the metal path. They sank wearily into the machine cushions. They gazed back at the ruined monster, the stagnating mound, where already strange reptilian birds and golden insects were busy at the steaming armor. A sound on the floor of the time machine stiffened them. Eccles sat there, shivering. Okay. So we read 95 to 104. I want you to go ahead, pause the video. You may need to look at it again, but decide what would you jot for. And go ahead and jot. Okay. So now, hopefully, you were able to jot. And I'm going to ask you an inference question. Why do you think the men don't want a photograph of their kill? How have their motivations changed from the beginning of the story? So you may be discussing this in your class before you jot the answer to this question, but go ahead and consider it and answer on your paper. Now we're going to read 105 to 114. And again, I'm going to ask you to think about what would you jot and make your jot. And I'm going to go ahead and read. I'm sorry, he said at last. Get up, cried Travis. Eccles got up. Go out on that path alone, said Travis. He had his rifle pointed. You're not coming back in the machine. We're leaving you here. Lesperance seized Travis's arm. Wait! Stay out of this. Travis shook his hand away. This fool nearly killed us. But it isn't that so much. No. It's his shoes. Look at them. He ran off the path. That ruins us. We'll forfeit thousands of dollars of insurance. We guarantee no one leaves the path. He left it. Oh, the fool. I'll have to report to the government. They might revoke our license to travel. Who knows what he's done to time, to history. Take it easy. All he did was kick up some dirt. How do we know? Cried Travis. We don't know anything. It's all a mystery. Get out of here, Eccles. Eccles fumbled with his shirt. I'll pay anything. $100,000. Travis glared at Eccles' checkbook and spat. Go out there. The monster's next to the path. Stick your arms up to your elbows in his mouth. Then you can come back with us. That's unreasonable. The monster's dead, you idiot. The bullets can't be left behind. They don't belong in the past. They might change anything. Here's my knife. Dig them out. Okay, so that was 105 to 114. Go ahead, highlight what you would jot about, and go ahead and make your jot. Hopefully you were able to make your jot, and here's your inference question for that section. Why does Travis want Eccles to leave the time machine? What's his motivation for wanting Eccles to leave the time machine? So go ahead, consider it. You may be turning and talking with your class to think about it, and then answer on your paper. Next, we're going to read 115 to 119, just a few short paragraphs. And again, I'm going to ask you to make your jot after we read. Here we go. The jungle was alive again, full of the old tremorings and bird cries. Eccles turned slowly to regard the primeval garbage dump, that hill of nightmares and terror. After a long time, like a sleepwalker, he shuffled out along the path. He returned, shuddering, 5 minutes later, his arms soaked and red to the elbows. He held out his hands. Each held a number of steel bullets. Then he fell. He lay where he fell, not moving. You didn't have to make him do that, said Lesperance. Didn't I? It's too early to tell. Travis nudged the still body. He'll live. Next time, he won't go hunting game like this, okay? He jerked his thumb wearily at Lesperance. Switch on. Let's go home. 1492, 1776, 1812. All right, go ahead and jot for 115 to 119. And then when you're done, we'll ask our inference question. So our inference question for this section, what was Travis's motivation for making Eccles retrieve the bullets from the T-Rex? Travis talks about something after Eccles gets back that kind of tells you why he did that. So go ahead and think about it and then jot your answer. Next, we're going to read 120 to 136. So be ready to jot. They cleaned their hands and faces. They changed their caking shirts and pants. Eccles was up and around again, not speaking. Travis glared at him for a full 10 minutes. Don't look at me, cried Eccles. I haven't done anything. Who can tell? Just ran off the path, that's all. A little mud on my shoes. What do you want me to do? Get down and pray? We might need it. I'm warning you, Eccles. I might kill you yet. I've got my gun ready. I'm innocent. I've done nothing. 1999, 2000, 2055. The machine stopped. Get out, said Travis. The room was there as they had left it, but not the same as they had left it. The same man sat behind the same desk, but the same man did not quite sit behind the same desk. Travis looked around swiftly. Everything okay here? He snapped. Fine. Welcome home. Travis did not relax. He seemed to be looking at the very atoms of the air itself, at the way the sun poured through the one high window. Okay, Eccles, get out. Don't ever come back. Eccles could not move. You heard me, said Travis. What are you staring at? Eccles stood smelling of the air. And there was a thing to the air, a chemical taint, so subtle, so slight, that only a faint cry of his subliminal senses warned him it was there. The colors, white, gray, blue, orange, in the wall, in the furniture, in the sky beyond the window and there was a feel. His flesh twitched. His hands twitched. He stood drinking the oddness with the pores of his body. Somewhere, someone must have been screaming one of those whistles that only a dog can hear. His body screamed silence in return. Beyond this room, beyond this wall, beyond this man who was not quite the same man seated at this desk that was not quite the same desk, lay an entire world of streets and people. What sort of world it was now, there was no telling. He could feel them moving there beyond the walls, almost like so many chess pieces blown in a dry wind. Okay, folks, so that was 120 to 136. Go ahead, figure out what you would jot for, and then make your jot. Okay, hopefully you did your jotting. And now, I want you to go back to that and make this inference. What are some clues that things are different than before they left at the beginning of the story? So the guys seem to be kind of uncomfortable somehow. How do you know things are different? What's in that section? Okay, hopefully your class was able to discuss that question. And now we're going to read 137 to 142. And you're going to jot. Here we go. But the immediate thing was the sign painted on the office wall, the same sign he had read earlier today on first entering. Somehow the sign had changed. Time Safari Inc. Safaris to any year in the past. You name the animal, we take you there, you shoot it. Eccles felt himself fall into a chair. He fumbled crazily at the thick slime on his boots. He held up a clod of dirt, trembling. No, it can't be. Not a little thing like that, no. Embedded in the mud, glistening green and gold and black, there was a butterfly, a very beautiful and very dead. Not a little thing like that. Not a butterfly, cried Eccles. Okay, that was 137 to 142. So what are you going to go ahead and jot about for that one? And here's your inference question. What does Eccles think caused the future to change? So he noticed things are different, and he kind of has an idea of why that might be. What caused that change? And then we're going to read 143 to 147. We're going to finish it out. It fell to the floor, an exquisite thing, a small thing that could upset balances and knock down a line of small dominoes, and then big dominoes, and then gigantic dominoes, all down the years across time. Eccles' mind whirled. It couldn't change things. Killing one butterfly couldn't be that important, could it? His face was cold. His mouth trembled, asking, Who won the presidential election yesterday? The man behind the desk laughed. Are you joking? You know very well. Deutscher, of course. Who else? Not that fool weakling Keith. We got an Iron Man now, a man with guts. The official stopped. What's wrong? Eccles moaned. He dropped to his feet, his knees. He scrabbled at the golden butterfly with shaking fingers. Can't we, he pleaded to the world, to himself, to the officials, to the machine, can't we take it back? Can't we make it alive again? Can't we start over? Can't we? He did not move. Eyes shut, he waited, shivering. He heard Travis breathe loud in the room. He heard Travis shift his rifle, click the safety catch, and raise the weapon. There was a sound of thunder. Okay, y'all. Go ahead and jot. That was the end of the story. So go ahead and jot. And then your inference question. What does Travis do at the end? And why does he do it? Okay. I can't wait to hear what y'all discussed. I'm going to ask your teachers. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy. I hope you did enjoy A Sound of Thunder.